So we might begin. So welcome to everyone. Welcome to those people that are online, connecting from various places. Apologies this evening from Sonia and Anton, another couple, and also from May that was going to be here that got hailed upon, and also Peter who was coming but got stopped on the M1 with the hail. Also Scott was going to be here but is now connecting online. That's all that I know of. We're here and the weather is okay. It's not raining, it's not hailing, it's not snowing. So settling in with our meditation. Taking this time to come back to center. Still at the center of being, the center of the mind, that still point, creating space at that still point, inner space, inner silence, silent mind, enabling that space and place for retreat. Meditation as a retreat within. Leaving the world behind, both externally, to be here, but particularly the world of worldliness, worldly issues, concerns, worries, values, and moving to something more profound. A world of deep peace, calmness, clarity, wisdom, perennial wisdom, perennial peace. It's available to us all if we simply close our eyes and enable that inner stillness, silence, and spaciousness. True nature of the mind, stillness, silence, and spaciousness. So having set up the posture for meditation, comfortable sitting position, sitting posture, the eyes gently closed, helping to bring awareness within. Having our initial deep, relaxing, letting go breath. Breathing out any stress tension that may have been building in the body over the day, the week so far. Any residue, tension, tightness, contraction, holding. Using this time now to relax, release, let go. Softening the body, relaxing awareness into the body. First base of mindfulness, the body. Sensing and feeling the body sitting here. Awareness of a few contact sensations. Feet connecting with the floor. The body connecting with the chair, cushion, or meditation stool. Feeling the hands resting in the lap. Maybe feeling air connecting with our face. Subtle light connecting with our eyes. Few background sounds connecting with the ears, but not being distracted or disturbed by them. Particularly not engaging with any thoughts that may arise in the mind. Even allowing thoughts as mental sight or mental sound to become quiet. Quietening the mind. As the Buddha recommended, taking up the object of the breath as our primary focus for the mind in meditation. Establishing mindfulness in front of us as we look into that lightness, brightness, and also perceive the naturally occurring sensation of the nose, the in-breath, the out-breath. Directing attention, sustaining attention, allowing the arising of inner ease and well-being, a subtle joy, pervading well-being, and focused attention. Focusing attention on each breath, feeling each breath in each moment of nowness, present moment knowing. Making each breath special through giving attention, even caring attention. The in-breath, the out-breath, sustaining physical life and sustaining conscious awareness, conscious attention, focus. Leading the mind to deep, profound stillness, peace and joy, samadhi. You need to help yourself to some tea and biscuits. Lovely air after the rain. Fresh, clean, good to breathe. This evening, I wanted to share some reflections around the topic of the forest and trees. So we might well wonder, what does the forest have to do with Buddhism? And I would say it has a lot to do with Buddhism. And here, Buddhism, as in that which is developed over the 2,500 of years of the Buddha's teachings, Buddhism, but it has more to do with the Buddha's teachings and the Buddha's recommendation for practice than just Buddhism. Because Buddhism, you'll find Buddhism in cities and towns, villages, Buddhism in terms of temples, monasteries, and certainly monks in those areas that may appear far removed from the forest, but the fundamental teachings and instructions of the Buddha were about being in the forest. We could even say that Buddhism began in the forest. Began in the forest, both in terms of the birth of Siddhartha Gautama before he later became the Buddha. So it's said that the Siddhartha Gautama's mother she was pregnant and she was going to be having her baby soon, and so she took a journey from the palace where she was living with her husband, and in keeping with tradition, going back to her hometown and family to have her baby there with the support of her mother. And on the way, she was overcome with the beauty of a certain forest and a particular tree, the Sala tree. The Sala tree, which is a tree native to India and those areas, has these big red flowers, blossoms, quite large. And so she wanted to go and look at them. So she got out of the chariot that she was in and went to have a look at these wonderful big blossoms that this tree was blooming. and she felt her baby was coming. And she couldn't wait to get to her village with her family. So she had her baby in the forest and holding on to, the story goes, holding on to the sala tree, and baby Siddhartha came out. So he was born under the sala tree. And obviously, as we know, the story of Siddhartha leaving his home life to take up the life of an ascetic, a wanderer, to seek realization, full and final freedom, truth, enlightenment, and which was finally found sitting under the Bodhi tree. The story goes that he then, after realizing full, complete spiritual enlightenment, stayed under that tree for several weeks in deep meditation before then going to teach, tell his 5 friends that he had realized ultimate truth, reality, freedom, enlightenment, which was the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the sutta that I mentioned on the last Vassa retreat day, the turning of the wheel of truth, a great sort of foundation for teaching the Buddha. But from then on, the Buddha spent the next 45 years living in various forests, and many of the discourses state where that forest was, whether it was Jeta's Grove, whether it was the Deer Park, sometimes Vulture's Peak, but certainly forests. And also exhorting and telling the monks, nuns, people to go and stay in the forest, go and meditate in the forest. He'd say there are these forests, these groves, these spaces, these quiet places. Find a root of a tree, sit down, and janati. So it's using the word jhana, do jhana. Jhana was a word for meditation. Do your jhana practice under the tree. So the Buddha lived and taught amongst the trees, the forests, and then he died laying down between 2 sala trees. So taking his last breath, completing the journey of life, realizing parinibbana. So nibbana, or Sanskrit nirvana, enlightenment, but then parinibbana is the final letting go of the body, the end, between 2 trees. And certainly that tradition of Buddhist monastics living in forests, practicing in forests, has continued. So we still have forest monks that make their practice living in forest environments. And it's no wonder why, because the forest has a lot to offer to humanity. It's the natural environment, particularly forests, grounding, soothing, nourishing. I was reflecting upon this over the week, especially because I knew that our friend May, our meditation group, has just spent 7 days, or might have been longer, 10 days, on a retreat in the forest. And maybe next week when she comes, she can share some of her reflections of retreating into the forest and being there, living very simply. See how that was for her. But last Sunday, I went out to the border ranges, out to Limpamud. There's a lovely native nursery there, Limpamud Valley, and I know the lady who owns the nursery, her husband Russell, he was the one that I worked with cancer and died in May. So went out there and visited her, got some trees, and also just a sense of being in that lovely forest environment and the ranges sort of behind. So their properties goes right up to the range, and there's an amazing feeling of deep, profound peace when you're away from the world, away from the noises of the world, and feeling into something that transcends worldliness. That's something millions of years old, like a range with trees that are very, very old as well. That natural environment, it's grounding, it's calming it. It helps to bring perspective to all the small-mindedness and pettiness and issues and worldly sort of pursuits that we get caught into, the worldly mind, by sort of being out of that, out of the world, out of the home, out of the village, the town, the city, and being in that sort of environment. It gives perspective to issues. Yes, we need to come back to our homes and suburban areas and towns and cities and so forth, but with a renewed perspective, to not take it so seriously, not be so sort of distracted into all of that minutiae and of events and concerns, having sort of fathomed and felt something deeper. Even the sense of the therapeutic value of being in that natural environment, like the body, these physical bodies that we have that are manifestations of nature. So by being in nature, there's a type of a resonance, the earth and rocks that resonate with the earthen aspect, the solid aspect of the body, the fluid aspect, seeing water in nature. And out of Lymplewood, there's a lovely creek that flows through with amazing rounded river rocks. They're sort of rounded. And so that the water sort of resonating with one's own sort of fluid water element. And then we have the warmth of the sun resonating with the warmth, the heat of the body, the fire element. And then we have the air that's purified by the trees that we're breathing into, that's becoming part of the whole body. That sort of air aspect and element, sense of like resonating. And also because we're not caught into just worldly, mundane pursuits, there's a sense of the mind transcending those sort of issues, being able to connect into something that's more fundamental, something that is more natural, and even as well, maybe one of the reasons that Buddha recommends, many of the reasons that Buddha recommend, but certainly one of them, that by being in a forest situation, you're away from a lot of the distractions that come from the world and worldliness, and certainly for us, electronic sort of technology and apparatus and so forth. So you're able to sort of become more grounded and calmed and stilled, and as well also to see how much of the self does relate to the things that we use as distractions. So whether it's the phones and social media and computers and all the things that create this sense of self. So when you're in a forest environment, it's like you lose yourself. There's less of a reference point to, oh, this is my home, and these are my things, and there's my furniture, and there's my computer, and there's my work stuff and so forth. So you're sort of away from that. So there's a different sense of self, even self sort of disappearing, coming back to sort of fundamental nature. And that's a great relief, which is why certainly the Buddha recommended to go to the forest, be in the forest, practice meditation in the forest. It's nourishing, it's nurturing, it's healing, it's grounding, as well as the insight that comes from being in a forest environment, seeing change of colors, light, temperature, certainly over time, whether it's just over the course of a day, to see the change of light and change of warmth and temperature, how that affects us, but also over time, days, weeks, months, seasons, to see change. Everything's fluxing, changing, the cycles that often we're not aware of if we're in constant light, constant temperature, constant sort of sounds in a, like an office and so forth in a city, all pretty much the same. We sort of lose touch with nature and lose touch with the seasons, lose touch with change. So again, wisdom can be gained, and by being in that sort of natural forest environment. And certainly the forest monks, particularly in Thailand, certainly northeast Thailand, where I spent years living in forests and learning from the forest. Ajahn Chah would really recommend the importance of learning from the forest. The forest will teach you. The forest will guide you. The forest will help to liberate you. The forest will help to heal you. And I think that with the stresses and challenges that we have in our contemporary life, it's really important to connect into nature in some way, to some degree, whether it's connecting with a tree in our backyard, whether it's driving to a place where there's a little nature strip, to a place where there's a nature strip, going to a park, going to a forest, walking in a forest to connect in that way, to help ground us. And obviously spending time, a day or more in a forest is wonderful. Even living in a forest can be wonderful. The Japanese have this concept, Shinrin-yoku. That may be not a correct pronunciation, but Shinrin-yoku. Forest bathing. The importance of therapeutic value of going to a forest and bathing in the atmosphere for nourishing the health and vitality of the body and the mind and soul as well. Very, very important. I've written a few actual verses about forests. One is when we can be more in nature, we can be more in our nature, not caught up in the mental I-making, my-making, me-making, mine-making. The ego I made through thoughts of the has-been or the might-be, never not now. Nature calls us to our senses so we can make sense of our senses and truly come to our senses, both literally and metaphorically. Also, another verse, find a forest place to partake in, find a forest path to pursue, find a forest pond to pause at, find a forest tree to be present with, find a forest rock to sit and ponder upon, find a forest flower with fragrant perfume, find a forest valley, hill, mountain, or glade to be grateful for, find a forest to lose yourself and find yourself, find a forest to feel renewed, anew, refined and refound. Find yourself a forest place to be a part of and to take part in. And another one, trees and stone, sun and sky, soil and sand, water and wind. All these do delight me, and in me find a friend. And another one, when you feel stuck and stressed, go to the trees. When you feel angst and angered, go to the trees. When you feel lost and lonely, go to the trees. When you feel fearful and frightened, go to the trees. When you feel sad and sorrowful, go to the trees. When you feel tense and tired, go to the trees. When you feel reactive and rageful, go to the trees. When you feel crowded and crushed, go to the trees. When you feel happy and hopeful, go to the trees. For whatever you feel and however you find yourself feeling, go to the trees. The trees will welcome you, support you, and sustain you. They will nurture you, nourish you, and bring you back to balance, peace, and mindful presence. There's also some lovely verses that others, well-known people have wrote about trees and forests. It's one that you might No, I'll say it and maybe you know who wrote it. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods. There is a rapture on the lonely shore. There is a society where none intrude, by the deep sea and music in its roar. I love man not less, but nature more. Anyone know who wrote that? It was Lord Byron. And Alan Watts, you know Alan Watts? He wrote, to the beloved company of the stars, the moon and the sun, to ocean, air and the silence of space, to jungle, glacier and desert, soft earth, clear water and fire on my hearth, to a certain waterfall in a high forest, to night rain upon the roof and the wide leaves, grass in the wind, tumult of sparrows in the bush, and eyes which give light to the day. Alan Watts. So certainly, I think really important to connect into nature, to find our nature and to move the mind away from a lot of the stresses. And certainly when I was out at Limplewood, I felt that this is what people need. People particularly that live stressful lives, busy lives, hectic lives, particularly people that are dealing with other people's stress, health professionals, to be able to connect in and sort of ground and earth and sort of connect into the earthen environment, the nature environment, the forests. We need that to sort of regain our humanity and to regain our sort of our heartfulness. And so that for us, we're really fortunate to live in this area where there's lots of forest and beautiful things in the forest, rocks and waterfalls and various sort of valleys and so forth. So it's really important to make use of it. I was talking with someone recently and he was saying that he works internationally from home on his computer. He says, you know, I need to get out because this sort of work, just being at home all hours of day and night, international sort of stuff, on the computer and not really appreciating the environment, it's deadening. So being up here in this area, it's important to sort of make use of it for our own sort of well-being and for the health and happiness of others, because the more calmer and grounded and present we are, coming to our senses through connecting to nature, that becomes our gift to others. So any thoughts yourself around connecting into nature, the natural environment, forest, trees, a favorite tree, watching a tree grow, spring blossoms?
Something I like to do a lot more of. I mean, one of the reasons I come here every Thursday is because I find it very peaceful here, and you know, I also work from home on calls early in the morning.
You were the one I was talking about.
No, I figured that
You're not alone.
pretty close. I can certainly relate to those feelings. But, yeah, you know, it's something that I think we've got to be more conscious of and make that effort. Like, you know, initially when I first came to the meditation group, you know, come sporadically, not realizing there's a lot of benefit there when I go regularly. And just hearing you talk about, you know, connecting with the forest and nature, I'm like, yeah, I need to make the same sort of effort. I need to make that transition from, oh no, it's out there, I'll get around to it, to no, just do it. So it's easy to say and hard to do.
And even the drive here from various places where you pass through countryside, forested areas, and even just parking down below in the car park, getting out, looking at the trees, and then walking up and coming up here, the various plants and bushes and shrubs and flowers that we've put in, trees, and for those of you that have been coming for some time, even seeing how things change and the growth of things over time. It's like, wow, this is soothing, it's nourishing.
When I leave, conversely, yeah, quite often on the last one, where we just like get down to the car park, and if there's nobody there, I'll just stop and look up, and sometimes, you know, you can see the Milky Way, so it's kind of a little sheltered down there, and like all the ambient lights get blocked, and you've got this great little tunnel of this pure sky.
Great.
To look at. So, yes, thank you for making this place about.
Thank you. Yeah. Meg?
We try and go once a year on like a 4 or 5 day hike. We have to sleep on the ground and we just carry our own food and we don't see anyone for 4 or 5 days. And it's probably our favorite times. And you do get to do things like just see the stars and you realize that your actual needs are small. And you spend a lot of time in silence, or you spend a lot of time just watching what happens with birds or how water flows, or you know, just gathering the small things that you need, getting water or sitting quietly. And the biggest shock always comes when we re-emerge into society. And there was one quite stark difference where we ended up after 65 kilometers in the Northern Territory at a waterfall, and then after you walked down to the waterfall you came to a car park, which is where we were going to be picked up, but the car park had probably over 150 cars parked in. And we had to re-emerge from being in nature for 5 days. We hadn't really changed our clothes, and but we felt incredibly happy, and you could actually feel like a sense of kind of unease when you went back into the room with so many people. Just because a lot of people were worried about things that you just found really trivial after that. Yeah.
In perspective.
Yeah. It's a really nice feeling.
That's great.
We'll actually be going again shortly.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
Where to?
Tasmania.
Okay.
Will be, in the northwest. There's a walk called the Walls of Jerusalem that we'll be doing.
That's good. Good. But Justin and Kirsten, you must enjoy living in a sort of forested environment and connecting to nature.
Yeah, I think we feel very lucky to live what we do, and we were just noticing today actually, our house is quite small and is based around a 6 meter square room, and it's got windows on all 4 sides. So even when we're sitting inside, we feel like we're sitting in the forest. And the house is built on a slope, and on the bottom side of the slope is a giant red cedar that comes up to the top room, which is where our sort of day-to-day life is. So we're sort of up in the canopy of that tree, and we're noticing all the birds that come in there, and the monitors that climb up and look for things, and how the snakes get up onto our roof from there, and because it's so steep, there's a lot of trees there that have never been cut down. So we have enormous figs and trees there. Yeah, so we were just reflecting today, weren't we, just like how lucky we feel to live in the forest, and we were drawn to that place particularly because of it. 27 years ago, we hadn't ever moved. And I think, that was one of the main reasons we came to this place and have stayed, is the trees. And our sort of, I suppose, our custodial role of looking after that little bit of rainforest, and how it sort of cools the kind of the summer heat, and brings all the animals and wildlife and mosquitoes and all the other things too. But it's just, there's such a integrated whole
ecosystem.
Wholeness to it.
And certainly planting more trees as well.
Yeah, often the trees we've had to cut down are the ones we planted because there was enough of a forest there already. it quickly, you know, those little bits of sky
Mm.
patches. It's, I mean, I do love living in the forest, but it's really lovely to have some sky.
Yeah, yeah, bit of sky
Um,
as well.
So we have a little clearing where our house is, so we can see that. So yeah, some of the trees we originally planted don't realize how fast they grow. So we bought little seedlings of like the condom,
Yeah,
we've talked about, which is one of the fastest growing trees there is. We've got one of those left, and it must be 70 foot. And that's, we planted that when our son was born. It's 20 years.
Mm.
24 years actually, yeah, it's 24.
Mm.
But one of three have remained
Mm.
of that particular. Yeah,
Mm.
yes. But maybe after your talk, what I was thinking was to maybe make one of the trees somewhere we could sit under.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's very forested,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's a few trees we could connect with
Mm.
more.
Even put some sort of a platform or a place to sort of sit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
We'll certainly use the trees, look at the trees, listen to the trees, connect with them, touch the trees.
I actually just with that, I wasn't really sharing. I like to sometimes go to Bungalow Park and take my yoga mat and do it in the Piggaveen Park there and do yoga and just look up at the trees. And actually, I had a bit of a profound thought when I was doing some yin yoga there about a couple of weeks ago. You know, the trees had all these big, I guess like a eucalyptus tree, and it had all these big bulbous lumps and bumps and tears, and I just looked at that tree and thought how beautiful that tree is. And I'd never tell that tree, oh my God, you've got lumps and bumps. But we do that. I mean, I know I do that to myself when I get pimples and all sorts of, I shouldn't have that. That's it. But it's like a tree has that. And I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it made me realize, you know, that it's so interesting how we say we shouldn't have these things, but we look at trees and we allow them to have them. Actually, what makes a tree beautiful.
Yeah, and unique.
And that's the other thing is, and as I've looked at a, you know, a rainforest, and it can look so crazy and cluttered, but actually like, and sometimes I wonder, you know, does that fern ever look at other ferns and go, oh, I wish I looked like that fern, you know, do the ferns compare themselves? Of course they don't. They just are what they are, and they all, although they've, you know, perhaps this all from the same family, they all grow completely differently, but they never question, I guess, themselves or their deform. I'm not going to use the word deformity, but their unique quirks. They just are. But we label our quirks as good or bad, and let them define us. Whereas a tree doesn't let its quirks define it; it just is, and that's so beautiful.
And that's part of the learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ajahn Chah says something similar. He says, judging and comparing yourself with others is bad practice. Would you get upset at a small tree in the forest for not being tall and straight like some of the others? It's the same thing.
One of the books I read, that Ajahn Brahm wrote, he talks about how there's no such thing as a perfect tree. Every tree has, you know, something broken, cracked, you know, bulbous, whatever. But you look at a tree and you think, yeah, it's beautiful. Even, you know, maybe its imperfections make it even more beautiful. He was comparing, you know, again, like how we look at trees to how we look at people. It's like we look at a tree and we appreciate the beauty of it, despite its imperfections, but we don't treat people that way.
A lot of people now put down like fake grass.
Oh,
They want everything to be perfect.
and
And they think that's more beautiful because it just stays the same.
It's boring.
yeah, and they're lazy.
So hopefully next week May can be along with us. Maybe she's maybe with us tonight on online, and so have some reflections around her experience practicing in the forest for some days. So thanks for coming out tonight, and stay dry, and see you next time.
Thank you, John.